Hi, and welcome to Watch It Played. My name is Rodney Smith, and in this video, we're going to learn the 2 to 4 player game, Meeple Land, designed by Cyril Allard and Frederic Guerard, and published by Blue Orange Games, who helped sponsor this video. How hard could it be to make an amusement park? I mean, you just fill it with fun rides, food, and lots of exciting attractions, right? Easy. Oh yeah, don't forget bathrooms. You definitely want bathrooms too. Probably some extra entrances. You might need to expand it at some point. You'll also want to put in paths that connect all the... You know what? This might actually be more complicated than it looks. So join me at the table and let's learn how to play. To set up, place this parking lot board in the center of the play area and put this round marker onto the first space of the round track here. Then you'll shuffle these bus cards into a face-down stack nearby, dealing a number of them face up into the parking lot, equal to the number of players plus 1. In this video, we'll set up a 2-player game, so we've dealt 3 buses. Each bus shows a certain number of these colored meeple symbols. Meeples are these wooden people-shaped figures that come with the game, and you'll add as many to each bus as are showing on its related card. So it will look something like this when you're done. All the rest of the meeples and buses you can put into a supply area for use later. Now I've sorted mine into some trays that I have, and if you'd like to get some of your own, you can find links in the description below. To the supply area, also add the coins and a number of these plot extensions and entrance tiles equal to the number of players, so 2 of each. And then you can return any extras back to the box. The tiles with these backs are the various attractions and services, which you'll sort and shuffle into 3 main piles based on their shapes. And then, as I've done here, you'll draw a certain number of them from each pile and put them face up in a row beside them. This will include 5 small tiles, 5 of the medium tiles, and 3 large ones. Now each player collects one of these plot boards, a score sheet, and a park entrance which they'll set beside the space marked with a small path. Everyone should also get a pencil or pen to write with while playing, and the last person who visited an amusement park is declared the first player, or you can just pick randomly and then you give them this first player park tickets token. Now starting with that player and going clockwise around the table, each person takes a certain amount of money from the supply. The first player gets nothing. The second player gets $1, and the third player, if you had one, would get $2, and the fourth player would get 3. And that's the setup. In Meeple Land, each player will be buying and placing attractions and services in their park as busloads of meeples show up to enjoy their day. Now you'll have to pay attention to the types of attractions they're looking for and make sure that they can get to them, because a poorly built park will cost you points, and the player with the most points at the end will win. The game is made up of 4 rounds, and each round is divided into turns, starting with the person who's holding the park tickets first player token, and then you go around and around the table in clockwise order. But before you start taking turns, at the beginning of each round, players receive a grant. This is a very important step, so be sure not to forget it. You'll check where the round marker is currently located and then give each player the amount of money shown above it. Here in the first round, this means that everyone takes $15. Now players will take turns, and on your turn, you can either buy a tile, advertise, or pass. So let's start by learning how to buy a tile. Here you purchase any single tile from this face-up area, or you can buy a plot extension or a new entrance. But just be aware, no matter how much money you have, each time you take the buy a tile action, you can only, at most, buy 1 item. And let's start by seeing what happens if you buy a face-up tile. First, pay its cost, which is shown in its bottom right-hand corner, and return that amount to the supply from the money that you have. Then collect the tile and immediately replace it with a new one from the related deck. The tile you took must be placed onto the grid of your park so that it fits perfectly within that grid, but you can rotate it any way you like as long as its entire piece fits on your board. But one of its paths must connect to at least one other path in your park, which at the start is this one. And you connect to it by covering it with one of the paths on your tile. So maybe I'll place this one just like this. This now becomes the entrance path to your park, which you're reminded of here with this stand. Now, anytime you add new tiles after this, like perhaps on a future turn, it must connect to at least one other path in your park. For example, I couldn't add this piece here because none of its paths connect to any of my other previous paths. But I could place it here because now we have a connection. New pieces only have to connect along one path. It's okay if other paths are blocked or just don't go anywhere. But blocked paths will cost you points later on, so keep that in mind. Anytime you add a new type of attraction to your park, you cross out the related box beside it on your score sheet. As we'll see later, the greater variety of different attractions you have, the more points you'll get. Something else we'll learn about later is how to attract visitors to your attractions. The type and color that will come to this particular ride is shown here, so you can at most have 1 yellow and 2 pink on this ride. Now sometimes the meeple shown will have a service requirement represented by either a gift, toilet, or food symbol. So to attract either of these pink visitors to this ride, we'll need to have a gift service connected to this tile. A service tile, like the ones we see here, will show the type of service it offers on a sign above its stall. If you buy a service tile, it connects to your park in the same way that attractions do. But in order for these to service an attraction, they have to be directly connected to the attraction that needs it. For example, in a situation like this, where I've put it here, although the path does lead to this attraction, it first goes through this other tile, so it's not counted as servicing this one. It can only service this tile. On the other hand, if I place it over on this side instead, now it is both adjacent and has a path going to the tile that needs it, so it is successfully servicing this requirement. And if an attraction shows 2 of the same type of service, having just 1 tile of that type attached will satisfy both. Also, some tiles will provide 2 different services like we see here, one for gifts and one for food. And both of these can be used by any attractions they're connected to. One of the most important things to understand is that once you place a tile in your park, it cannot be moved or rotated later. So you're going to want to try to think ahead about where you want your tiles to be positioned as you're placing them. And although your park area is pretty big, you can make it even bigger by using the buy tile action to instead purchase one of these plot extensions. But each player can only buy one of them during the game, and they cost $6. Just place it on any side of your park so that its grid lines up with the grid of the main park tile, though it can extend beyond the edge of the main park area if you want, so this would be a valid placement. Either way, you can now add attractions and services to this as well, as long as their paths connect. The final type of tile you can buy instead is an extra entrance for $3. Each player can only have one of these, and you then place it on any one side of your main park or extension tile if you have one. You can now buy new tiles and then connect them here if you want instead. But buying a tile or plot extension isn't the only option you have on your turn. You can instead buy an advertisement. Advertisements are just the backs of the small tiles, and the top one of this stack is the ad you have access to. Acquire it by paying the cost here and then take the pictured meeples from the supply, putting the advertisement you just bought on the bottom of its stack. When you gain new meeples, add them to your entrance, or if you have a valid spot for them in your park already, you can just add them directly to it. But we'll discuss how to add meeples to your park in greater detail later. If you can't, or you just don't want to buy a tile or advertise on your turn, you must pass, and then your turn will be skipped for the rest of the round as other players continue taking their turns. However, as soon as you pass, you collect any available bus from the track here, along with the meeples on it. You then place this at the entrance of your park. Each player will do this as they pass, so eventually everyone will have passed and everyone will have a bus. Then it's time to perform the 4 end-of-round steps, starting with welcoming visitors, which can be performed by all players simultaneously. Meeples at the entrance can now be placed on any free spaces that match their color. For example, on this attraction, I can have at most 1 yellow and 2 pink visitors. I don't have any yellow visitors, but I do have some pink ones. These spaces require that a gift service be attached, and I do have one right here, so I could put 2 of my pink visitors at the entrance on top of this attraction. If I get a yellow visitor later, I'll be able to put it here. I also see that I can put 2 green visitors on this attraction. The first one doesn't have any requirements. The second one requires a gift service as well. The closest one is here, and although it's connected along the path, it's not directly adjacent, so this service requirement is not being met, so I cannot put another green visitor here. Fountains like this will show a gray meeple, and that's wild, meaning that any visitor can be assigned to one of those spaces. In this case, I'll move one of my green visitors there. Although this is the first time we're really talking about adding visitors into your park, it's important to understand that you can actually do this at any time. So during the buy tiles phase, if you have meeples by your entrance that could move into your park, you can move them in at that time. You don't have to wait until this specific step. And once a meeple is on a particular attraction, you can still pick it up and move it to another valid attraction if you want to. And if you purchased a second entrance, you can always move meeples between the two different entrances as you like. Just note the paths that end at the edge of the board are not considered an entrance. Only paths beginning at the entrance piece or this entrance tile can bring in new visitors. You may not be able to add all of your visitors to your park just yet, and that's okay. Instead, you can just place them beside the entrance and then add them later when spots become available. Now, though, it's time for the next step, receiving revenue. Gain $1 for every visitor inside your park, so don't include any that are at the entrances. And then if you have a meeple on a space with this dollar sign, gain an extra $1 for them. So in a case like this, I would earn $1, $2, $3, $4 for the meeples in my park, and then $2 more for the meeples on these two spots. Now check to see who has the least amount of money. You then give them the park tickets token, and they will be the first player of the next round. Now in the case of a tie, the tied player closest in clockwise order to the current first player takes the token. Unless one of the tied players was the previous first player, in which case they don't get the token, and the next closest tied player in clockwise order does. Finally, move any remaining busts to the top of the track and draw new ones until the total is once again equal to the number of players plus 1, and then add the required meeples to those buses. Any buses players collected during the previous round can then be returned to the box. In rare cases, there might not be enough meeples to add to a bus or fulfill an advertisement that you've just purchased. In any of those cases, just add as many meeples as you can and ignore the others. Now advance the round marker and ensure that every player gets their new grant for the next round, which in this case would be $10 more. And rounds will continue like this until it's the end of the fourth round, where it's time to use your score sheet to determine everyone's final score. First, check how many different attractions your park has, which, as I mentioned, you can be checking off here on this area of the score sheet as you gain them while playing. And then you'll use this chart to gain the related number of points. Just keep in mind that while fountains count as a type of attraction, service tiles do not. In this case, I gained a total of 9 different attractions, and as it indicates here, that means I gain 10 points. Now for every green and blue visitor inside your park, gain 1 point for each, and then gain 2 points for every pink and yellow visitor in your park. Any meeples you are not able to add to your park that are still at an entrance will cost you points. Lose 1 for every green and blue meeple, and lose 2 for every pink and yellow one. Finally, for every path in your park that is cut off by another tile, you'll lose 2 points. Paths that lead into open areas or off the edge of the board don't cost you any points. And then, the player with the most points has earned the best reputation for their park and wins. In the case of a tie, the tied player with the least total number of points deducted wins. If there's still a tie, the tied player with the most visitors in their park wins, and if there's still a tie, the tied players share the victory. And that's how you play Meeple Land. If you have any questions about anything you saw here, feel free to put them in the comments below, and I'll gladly answer them as soon as I get a chance. You'll also find forums for discussion, pictures, other videos, and lots more over on the games page at Board Game Geek, and I'll put a link to that in the description below. And if you found this video helpful, please consider giving it a like, subscribing, and clicking that little bell icon so you get notification anytime we post a new video. But until next time, thanks for watching.